Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. How are you, Hannah?
I am well, and how are you?
I am doing good. We are back reviewing some Star Wars live action series. Ahsoka premiered this past week and at a decent hour,
Yeah.
right? 9 o'clock on Tuesday nights. Now, I think it's been confirmed that it is every Tuesday nights, right?
I think so. That's my understanding. So
Yeah,
I'm very happy about that.
absolutely very happy. So we got 2 episodes of Ahsoka, totaling about an hour and 37 minutes. So we will talk a lot about that, obviously, in this episode of Inside the Force, and then continue our discussions with Ahsoka. This being Ahsoka month in a sense for our themes. I do got a couple things I wanted to bring up beyond what we saw in the show. But of course, as always, thanks to our patrons for contributing and supporting the show. If you're interested in doing that, patreon.com/inside the force. Go check out our tiers there. We actually did a big reaction video on there this past week. Probably went a little longer than we talked. We talked a lot because there was a lot to talk about in these first 2 episodes, but which we'll get into in a second. But it was supposed to be kind of our first reactions, but there's a lot of what to react to.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. Thanks for tuning in, though, and thanks for, again, supporting the show, Patreons. So, yeah, so we'll just, there isn't any news out there right now. There's obviously we're still following what's happening with the strikes. And it is unfortunate. I mean, obviously, I know they've got to, do what they got to do to get, better and equal pay and all that stuff. But what really sucks is I know someone like Rosario, God, to go out and celebrate that she's playing Ahsoka right now. I mean, I understand she can't do it, And it sucks because I know how much she wanted this role and how much she loves playing Ahsoka. And you can just tell. So it sucks that you can't see any of them out there, promoting it and pushing for it and getting the recognition they deserve.
Yeah.
All the actors in this, right?
Yes, but at the same time, there's a huge wave of social media showing their support.
Of course.
I know it's not the same, but at least there is something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's just been an onslaught of support and praise for people's performances, work, all that, all that good stuff.
All that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's dive in.
All right.
Ahsoka Part 1, and the Part 1 is titled Master and Apprentice. We've seen the advertisements of this. They released pretty much an entire TV spot centered around Master and Apprentices. So first of all, now I know we actually spent a lot of time in this last video. We got to talk about the crawl again.
Okay. You are like a dog with a bone with this crawl. I mean,
Well, not everybody on the podcast and is YouTube has heard us talk about it.
no,
yet,
I know
right?
that, but the fact that that's the first thing that comes to mind again is like, wow,
Well,
that really bothered you.
It didn't bother me. I'm just going through the show in chronological order. Okay. So
Okay.
the first thing is the crawl. And yeah, it doesn't bother me. In fact, I love crawls. I think that, and I mentioned it earlier, and I think I've mentioned it on the show a lot. I think every Star Wars series, every Star Wars live action should have a crawl. I think that's Star Wars. And it's weird because and I think they did it here. It's like they're trying to do a different version of a crawl. without doing the official,
Right.
George Lucas crawl. I get it. But you pointed it out, which I didn't even realize. I forgot about. You pointed out like it is a crawl because as soon as it's over, we have a ship that comes into the shot, just like a normal crawl does. So I just was mentioning that I wish they would have just done it the normal way, even if it wasn't the music and the big dun, but it would have been neat to see it like the normal way. Anyway, but I liked it. I don't know.
Okay.
Thoughts on the crawl?
Neither here nor there for me. With the crawl, I think it's just pretty cool. I think it was actually a really good way of if someone didn't see Mandalorian season 2, they didn't need any catching up. We could just jump right in there, right then and there. So I think it was smart to do the crawl. I also think it's interesting that the opening in the beginning where you see all the characters and the light flashes across their faces, they're all the color red. It's not red and blue, it's all red. And then we get red text in the crawl. So right away that sets a sinister feel for the entire thing. So
That's right.
So it doesn't bother me that it wasn't on a slant. I know for you, you're like just slant and then go, but it didn't bother me, honestly.
I think it would have been a good. I think it could have been just a good way for Filoni to pay a little homage to George that way. I mean, he kind of did in a way. That's what I'm saying. Like he did anyway. The crawl, it reads like, even there's capital, words in there, all caps, just like it does. So anyway, I love it. I think it's fine. I'm glad he did something like that because I think it very much brings us into Star Wars right away again, and not just start, which is different. This is kind of deviating a little bit from the Mando type shows because, Book of Boba Fett very much stayed the style of Mandalorian where it was chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and the title kind of came up the same way. Yeah. So this is a little different, which is fine, but it is pretty neat. So anyway, I guess, before I dive into that, because I usually do this first. Overall reactions, right? Just
okay.
Before we kind of get into it, so let's just go both episodes. Just overall reaction. Hannah, your thoughts on it? What do you think?
I think first off, cinematically, I think it's the most beautiful live action Star Wars that we have seen. I think.
Wait, even the movies? Or are you talking about just series?
No, I'd probably argue movies, and I would argue movies as well. And it could just be because it's the latest thing that's come out, but everything is just stunning and meticulous and detailed. And you can't. I think that's probably the most positive thing you could say about it is that it's just stunning. Every shot is breathtaking. The cinematography is great. The sets are great. The costumes are great. The makeup it's just all on point. I feel like we've seen, and I know why they did this. The majority of the shots in the trailers were definitely from these first 2 episodes, which is fine. I get it. You don't want to give too much away. It's enough to make you go, I want to watch more. But I can't say I can't say right now if this is one of my favorite shows or one of my least favorite shows. I need to see one more episode because I feel like everything was very predictable. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't say that as a negative. I'm just saying it was predictable. But I think also a lot of it is because of the trailer that we saw. So, and then I did watch it again. And in watching it again, I I'm really trying to figure out how to say this in the most positive way. But I don't necessarily, and this has been bothering me every single time she's come up, but I don't necessarily like Rosario's presentation and performance of Ahsoka. And I think and I think for me, it's because it's too mature, it's too Jedi-y, it's too stick up the butt. Like it's to that. Where's the snarky sense of humor? And I'm not saying like that's Rosario. That could very well be how Filoni wanted to present Ahsoka, and that's 1,000,000% okay. I miss Snips. I miss the snarkiness. I miss the jabs every now and again. I miss that spunkiness. I kind of miss it. And I don't think that's necessarily like a negative or a bad thing. It's just a preference. And it could just be, Ahsoka has matured out of that. And if that's the case, that's fine. That's the direction they want to take it. I'll still watch it, and I'm not going to hate on anyone for it, but that's just something I feel like that has been missing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's been a part that's been missing. And I don't know if that's just me being nostalgic of the Ahsoka that we saw in the Clone Wars and even the Ahsoka we saw in Rebels. So overall, like, those are my takeaways. Those are my 3 main takeaway points from watching these 2 episodes. What about you?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I think, we'll get into it more, but I do think there's a sense of a level of maturity, just because it's been so long since Snips. Because do you feel like she was that way in Rebels?
I feel like in Rebels, there was a balance of maturity, but there was still some snarkiness. There was still a little bit of that je ne sais quoi that she tended to bring. Yeah, there was some of it, but it was in a much more matured manner.
Right.
So, yeah. But once again, that's not like hating on anybody's direction or hating on anybody's performance. That's not that at all. It's just me, missing that part. And I don't know if it's, as you said, she just is that mature now, or I don't know.
Well, I think, and I think that gets into a little bit of, some of the discussion points that I'm going to bring up. But one is, but my overall take was, I agree with you. I love the visuals of this series. I think like Lothal looked incredible.
Yes.
I think Filoni's done an incredible job of his translation from animation to live action. As opposed to some of these other things that we've seen. It's pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible because at the end we had to recreate the rebel scene. It was pretty flawless. I mean, there were definitely some differences, but that's you're never going to get it perfect. I think the way Ahsoka, Hera, Sabine look is again spot on.
Amazing.
Yeah, and of course Chopper looks like Chopper and act like Chopper. I mean, it's just even my daughter was saying, "Oh my gosh, that is Chopper." I mean, it definitely is. Even the quirkiness and the movements. So I applaud him big time for his way of keeping the tradition of in the what we saw from animation. I mean, even Clancy Brown's character. I mean, he's playing the same character he did in in the animation. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
So I'm, I think afterwards, again, and unfortunately, I haven't actually gone back and rewatched it yet, which I may even just do tonight. Definitely going to do it this weekend. But I think the first viewing, I always tend to get just wrapped up in how vast and beautiful everything looks. Mm-hmm. And I tend to kind of just skip some of the dialogue and really pay attention to what everybody's saying. But I do feel like in these first 2 episodes, I'm not sure I really missed too much, because I do feel like the story that these 2 episodes told, I feel like and maybe because I'm a big Star Wars fan, I feel like I knew all of this already. Like, like even looking up Balin and I can't remember her her last name, her name, but his apprentice. Yeah, it's like, yeah. But in a way, we knew that it was kind of already revealed that they were mercenaries, right? I think they're in the database on StarWars.com. They're former Jedi. He's a former Jedi. They're mercenaries now. We knew Morgan Elsbeth is going to be in the show, so that wasn't a surprise. We know that they're looking for Thrawn, and we know Sabine is on Lothal, and Hera's a rebel general or a rebellion or a Republic general, and Ahsoka has to go and recruit Sabine. It's like we just saw everything play out what we knew already, right? So
right.
There wasn't the only thing I was hoping for, or there wasn't just that one thing to be like, whoa, okay, I didn't know that, or that's exciting me, really exciting to learn more about or to discover more, right? That's the only, and it's not, again, like you it's not a huge knock, and it's not saying I'm disappointed. Like, I was just hoping, again, and we're so spoiled from the first episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because seeing Baby Yoda was like jaw-dropping. Yeah, mind blown. That's kind of what I just expected. I expected something to be like, okay, whoa, that's crazy. You know what I mean? So I think Filoni, I think he just, I mean, you can tell he's a fan. I think he did what he knew to do, and he laid out. I still think there's a lot that we don't know, which we're going to get in the next few episodes. But overall, right now, these first 2 episodes weren't a surprise. I think it was a visually surprising to see, but story wise, again, I think we all kind of knew what was happening in this already. If that makes sense, right?
Right.
So, but overall, I mean, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for the next 6 weeks and seeing these episodes, how this unfolds. But now, okay, so now getting into some of these aspects, I do have to say that thinking more and more about it, these first 2 episodes played out so much like a video game as well. I mean, I felt like I was almost watching Jedi Fallen Order, just seeing Ahsoka going through the motions. Am I the only one to?
Nope.
Yeah, I think that. What'd you think?
Well, that was literally, for the reaction video that was literally the first note I wrote was, feels like a video game. And that's not a knock. Like, once again, that's not a knock. I think that's so cool. I think it's a great way to kind of tie in the video games. And I think we'll get to this later on in our discussion, but that's actually one of the reasons why I believe we're actually going to get a live action Cal.
Yeah, okay.
There were rumors he was on set.
Yeah.
There were rumors. And I think that kind of ties it in. And, like, if you look at the temple puzzles and if you look at what she was doing and with the Force Echo, like almost identical to what Cal is doing in the video games.
Mm-hmm.
Almost identical. So, yeah, it's not just you. It felt like a video game. And
as soon as she was trying to figure out, you know, the puzzle of getting the map, and then we did I forget to mention it before, was the Force Echo was crazy. I knew what she was doing, but it took a second to comprehend, like, wait a minute, oh, Force Echo, oh wow, that's Cal does that, right? So yeah, that was cool. I mean, that was really, you know, you did feel like you were going on, which is what Star Wars is too, right? It's an adventure. You felt like you were going on this adventure and discovery with her, and that part was incredible. Now I don't know if the intent was to make that distinction, but you know, that connection between the game and, or if that is somewhat of a foreshadowing that we're gonna get Cal Kestis in this thing. I don't know. You know, I guess that kind of brings up the possible rumors. I mean, could Merrick actually be Cal Kestis?
I was just thinking that because in the game Jedi Survivor, you can dabble in the dark side.
Yes, that's right.
Like, and I don't even just mean like sticking your toe in the water, like full on immerse yourself in the dark side of the Force. So it could be that that's the canon version of the story.
Wow, I actually kind of forgot that you do that in the game. That you do have a dark side power temporarily. Yeah, and we don't know what happens to him after Jedi Survivor and this part of the timeline. You know, I saw a rumor out there too that people are saying they think it could be a brainwashed Ezra as well.
It could be. I mean, if you have, and you know, one of the things we discovered was Morgan is a Night Sister.
That's right.
A witch. And we already know that Ezra dabbled a little bit in the dark side too, thanks to Darth Maul. Darth Maul's species and the Night Sisters have like this weird relationship with each other.
Yes.
So there isn't anything that could say that she brainwashed Ezra.
Right. I know. And it's got to be, you know, it's like the discussion we had of Merrick being Barriss.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason why he or she was wearing a mask.
Yeah. I mean, I know I told you because they dropped the pronoun of he. I'm like, okay, so it's not Barriss. And you're like, no, That could have been a misdirection.
Totally could.
So,
because obviously if they said she, then you probably be like, whoa, see, I told you.
Cool. But they could have said they. I don't know. But like the thing is, I feel like I will actually be very disappointed if Merrick isn't someone important.
Totally agree.
Well, there's the other theory that it's Sam Witwer.
Yes, because you brought that up.
He's in the end credits of episode 2 as additional voices. Merrick is in episode 2, and we hear some grunts. Don't hear Sam's voice anywhere else.
Yes. I know, because you could have gotten anybody to come in and do those grunts. Mm-hmm. If that's what it's even referring to. I mean,
yes,
it could be that he lent a voice to somebody or something in there. Chopper. Yeah, that's interesting. I think in Rebels, I think I could be totally wrong, but I thought Dave Filoni was Chopper.
I thought he was too. I just said Chopper as a joke.
Okay. I'm wondering if Filoni did Chopper in this.
Got to look back at those credits and see.
Because it sounds exactly like him. I mean, they probably just pulled the archives, from the show.
That's cool.
But that'd be interesting if this is a possible Star Killer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. That's the thought. It could be Star Killer.
Could be
Because
Star
I don't
Killer.
think we know Star Killer's fate either, right?
Well, Star Killer is not canon.
Oh, right. I'm getting that mixed up with something else.
Yeah, so Star Killer is not canon right now. Force Unleashed, those games are incredible as well. I mean, very much that was the Jedi Fallen Order, of that time.
Right.
And everybody loved playing as Star Killer, and you got to see the birth in that story. He was the reason why the rebellion came together. Dark apprentice of Darth Vader. So it'd be interesting to see that, because this could be Merrick still could be the apprentice of Darth Vader, and survived.
Well, the thing too is that we're already seeing so many acknowledgments of the original 7, 8, and 9, which was, supposed to be Thrawn. We're seeing a lot of those references and a lot of those little tips of the hats. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe the Yuzon Vong are going to swoop in at the end, and then that's going to be season 2. Like,
yeah, it definitely could. Because
Because
Filoni was trying to introduce them in Clone Wars.
Yes, he was, which I wish we got there, because you want to talk about a fascinating race in the EU.
Yes. Yeah, no.
Anyway, sorry.
I think we're eventually going to get get the Yuzon Vong at some point.
I think so. If anything, though, in the High Republic, we already have the Nihil, which is already a very similar. I mean, it's not a similar race, but it's a similar concept behind their race.
Yeah, right.
So, if anything, we at least have that. But so that was a tangent. We just went ping pong, ping pong, ping pong.
That's all right. That's what it does. So one other aspect I think that I thought about, I do want to discuss, even though we're not there yet, because, and what I mean by that is, we know that Mon Mothma eventually shows up in the series because we've seen her in the trailers. I want to talk really quick about the state of this galaxy. Right now, we've been here before because it's the Mandalorian and it's Book of Boba Fett. So with the Mandalorian, we've gone to a couple worlds and we've seen the Republic, the Navy, in a sense, the Republic Navy with the TIE fighters and things like that, and that that spaceport that Mando visited and saw, where we saw Zeb and all that stuff. But we haven't really, well, I guess, and then with a second season of Mandalorian, we did go to Coruscant, and we kind of got we got a little bit of a taste of what the New Republic is doing, right? They are trying to incorporate or vet and I don't know, the word escaping me, but they're trying to reestablish the Imperial officers and people loyal to their empire,
repurpose,
and kind of or rehabilitate, right, or something like that. Is that kind of
the rehabilitation program is what they talked about,
right? So they're trying to get them working for the New Republic now. So you're getting a little bit more of that here, right? Obviously, in these 2 episodes, where when Hera and Ahsoka go and find that all these people working in the shipyard at Corellia are basically working for Morgan and being loyal to and they kind of masked it by saying, oh, it's really just about being paid. It's not really about the Empire anymore. But that guy came up and said, long live the Empire or whatever, before he got killed or whatever. So it made me wonder, or it just made me kind of realize that after Return of the Jedi, I mean, because we're 5, 6, 7 years after Return of the Jedi now. I mean, there still isn't really peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, we were kind of under this assumption that the war ended after Return of the Jedi, and maybe it didn't seem like it picked back up until 30 years later when we get to episode 7. But this 30-year gap now, I mean, I think we're starting to realize, I mean, there hasn't been really any peace. There's been constant fighting. I mean, do you get that sense as well too?
Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think we all made an assumption that, you know, even with the aftermath novels of like, yeah, the war was over, but battles still happen. We were all like, oh, well, then everybody just kind of calmed down for the most part. I mean, of course, we suspected there were little pockets here and there of people from the Empire still fighting. But I think this really showed the level of brainwashing the Empire really did with their people. And I mean, we see that in Rise of the Red Blade. We see how persuasive he was. And like, if you didn't know the full story, you would 1,000,000% agree with him and stand behind him. So I think this just shows how deep that manipulation and control really went. And I think it's absolutely, the more and more we learn about it, the more terrifying it actually is.
Yeah, which again, kind of, I will always wonder, and this is what I think a lot of people were turned off of with the sequel trilogy, is you didn't have the reestablishment of the Jedi to keep the peace, right? I mean, if Luke would have, I don't know, immediately started, and I know it would have taken years still to establish a full, you know, hundreds and thousands of Jedi,
right?
Again, but at least if you would have had a good core of 20 or 30 or something like that to at least go out there and help the New Republic get established. I mean, I'll always say it. That's what I wish I would have seen in episode 7. An established government, an established Jedi Order, and then see them get tested, you know, whatever. But
so you mean Shadow of the Sith?
Basically, yes. Yeah. You know, he was on his way in that. But you know, at this point, again, we'll see if Luke ends up showing up, but you know, he's kind of out there just doing his own thing when all this chaos is happening still.
I don't think we're going to see Luke in this season. We might see him in the future, but I don't think we'll see him this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he'll be maybe in the movie, you know. Maybe
definitely. If he's not in the movie, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
I mean, how can you not call on your greatest warrior if you're fighting one of the greatest adversaries in Thrawn?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that part's hard to imagine, and you know, we're going to get to the point too where it seems like this is going to be a very, and I'm talking very significant point in the timeline. If Thrawn comes back and there is an all-out battle, I mean, this is going to be a turning point, what would be one of the turning points in the galaxy. And unfortunately, you already have the sequel trilogy out there and all these stories around that are never going to mention this. You know what I mean?
Unless...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the episode in Rebels? The World Between Worlds?
World Between Worlds.
World Between Worlds. You could technically time travel to different points in history. So what if this is their way of just throwing out 7, 8, 9 so that they can redo it?
Yeah.
That's
can't erase. You can't erase Rey.
No, you can't. Especially with that new movie coming out, you can't erase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know that, but it's a theory. People are.
No.
very strong feelings about that theory.
Yes, there's a lot of people out there that want that for sure. They do want that.
But in all seriousness, yeah, you bring up a good point. If this is that crucial of a moment in history, why was it not mentioned? Why was there no allusion to it?
Well, and also the, how do you say it? The character experiences, of like Leia, and because Leia is at some point she should be mentioned in this somehow.
At the very least, I mean, she was in
right
Rebels.
because Ben is already born, right? So Ben at this point is 5, 6, 7 years old, and I think at this point she's already. Well, I don't think she hasn't quite given him to Luke yet.
No,
so
I don't
she
think
may
she
be
has.
right. So she may be just being a home mom right now, I guess, raising him. But she's always been active. She's always still been active, helping Mon Mothma, and I know it's gonna be hard to show her at all in any of this stuff, which is probably not going to happen. But this experience. Because Leia, if there's a battle, Leia is not going to just stay at home, right? So how do you prevent her from being involved in this?
I don't think you can.
In this battle.
I don't think you can. And so maybe we will see her when it all tees up in the movie, maybe. Or maybe we'll like get a quick voiceover from her, like saying, this is I don't know, whatever squadron. Yeah. But the only thing I can think of how you kind of gloss this over and why this isn't something that is a huge contribution to the future movies, or at least a blatant one, is because the only thing I can think of is that Thrawn, in Palpatine's great mastermind planning thing he is, this is a distraction so that the First Order can truly get their foothold. Because we know the First Order has been building over those 30 years. We know that in Bloodline, there were whispers of the First Order being created. Yep. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that this whole Thrawn thing is meant to distract everyone from the beginning first steps of the First Order. And if that can be successful, then the First Order will go unnoticed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely going to be some kind of tie to the First Order. I think it has to be. Yeah, I think it has to be. And Leia, we know Leia knew the threat of the First Order for a while. Therefore, forming the resistance even before the New Republic, was even on board with it.
So maybe that's her thing. Maybe the reason why she doesn't show up as the battle is that she knows it's a distraction, so she's after the First Order.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and Bloodline still is years from now.
Yeah.
So, but that's I'm just thinking of that as far as character experiences, how much that would change, the character at all, knowing these things and then seeing these stories later, because things like that have happened already, right? Because we now have the Obi-Wan series that takes place between 3 and 4. So you now have to go into episode 4 knowing that Obi-Wan had this experience already with Vader. Mm-hmm. How much does that change? I think they did a good job that it doesn't actually affect, because there's no dialogue in episode 4 that says that they did not see each other since episode 3, right?
Right.
So you can kind of understand and live with the fact that, and maybe that's going to be the case here, but it's just strange that, and again, it's the problem with doing prequels, right? You don't have the knowledge when you're creating 7, 8, 9 of really what happened in these 30-year gaps.
Right.
And now that we've got these significant things that I mean, even Aftermath was significant.
Oh,
like you
yeah.
said. I mean, that's a very significant story. The Battle of Jakku. But they did know that going into 789. That's why you see the Jakku and the remnants of the Star Destroyers and things like that. So they thought ahead in that sense, but they didn't really think about this, and they didn't know about this. And this just seems like, may not end up being, but this just seems like this is going to be a major galactic event.
Yeah.
Just like the original Thrawn trilogy was, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, for sure.
Indeed.
What other points do you have or anything about the series so far, these 2 episodes?
The Padawan braid.
Oh, yes. Interesting.
Like, they say they're not Jedi.
I didn't notice that until you said, yeah.
Yeah, they say they're not Jedi. Yes, she wears a Padawan braid. That is like a distinct Jedi feature. So I don't know if he's like trying to create a new form of Jedi and like bring the Jedi Order back in a different way. We still don't know why their blades are orange. But actually, Zach brought up this point. In the game Jedi Survivor, when the character from the High Republic causes, this isn't that much of a spoiler because it happens towards the beginning of the game, causes his crystal to, like, when he gets his saber, it's yellow. And then when he causes his crystal to bleed, it actually turns orange, not red. So could it just be the reason why these sabers are red is because it was a yellow saber?
Interesting.
And the reason why I bring that up too is that in Rise of the Red Blade, it's distinctly said that yellow sabers were rare, but it meant you were a temple guardian.
Correct. Yes.
So could it just be that Balin was a temple guardian?
I guess that's possible. And then he must have just given her an old temple guard saber as well?
Maybe. No, she would have had to have created a new one because Hu Yang didn't recognize that saber at all.
Didn't. That's right.
So it means she probably went through the whatever his version of the Jedi trials are and built her own saber.
Well, and then he could have easily gotten a crystal out of a different saber.
Right. And maybe like her whole thing was she had to make it bleed.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're for sure that in Jedi Survivor it's an orange blade?
I thought so. Like it could have been like how it played on our it could have been how it played on our TV, but it seemed more orange than it did red.
I heard an interesting rumor about Balin was that yes, Hu Yang recognized his saber as Balin's, but maybe Balin is not Balin. Like that's Balin's saber.
Right.
Something about he said it even slightly modified, right?
Think so.
So maybe he's assuming the identity of Balin or something like that is what I kind of read, that he found the saber. But
wasn't Balin called Balin? So is he just assuming his identity?
Right. That's kind of what I heard as a rumor. Maybe it's not. Maybe he's not a Jedi. He's not the Balin Jedi. Like he kind of took over his identity and became this mercenary kind of thing, right? So
the new biggest threat to the galaxy, identity theft.
Right. Yeah. But I think it's him. But it's a big question because obviously he's been gone since the Clone Wars, which is about 30 years. So yeah, interesting to figure out. And then all of a sudden now he's got an apprentice. But you're right. She's got Shin as her name, and she has a braid, which is very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
The other thing, I saw this parallel on social media and now I can't unsee it. I wonder if Sabine is going to sacrifice herself. Reason being, we see Kanan cut his hair, he sacrifices himself. We see Sabine cut her hair. Now that it could just be that that was someone looking into it way too much and Sabine was just simply cutting her hair because we don't see a lot of Mandalorian with long hair.
We don't.
And it was very ritualistic the way she did it. So it could just be that it's a ritual of Mandalorian that if you step away and then you come back, you cut your hair.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. So let's go there a little bit. What's your thoughts and everything about Sabine being an apprentice to Ahsoka?
I'm okay with it. I mean, like, even Zach, when he was watching it with me, he was like, wait, she's force sensitive? And I think they were able to explain that with Huyang going, you know, you're right. You don't have a deep connection with the force naturally like I see other students. But I think that showed that that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like anybody. I think it opens up the door to the idea that anybody could wield the force. You just have to have the willpower to do so.
Right.
And the gumption to do so. And for some people, it's natural and easy. For other people, it's not. So I'm okay with it, but I hope we get some backstory there and figure out exactly what happened and why would Ahsoka leave her?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like it leaves a lot of unanswered questions.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, we definitely need to know that story a little bit about what happened between them. You know, we see the recreation of the end of Rebels, you know, the fast forward to this point, and not knowing then what we know now, which is her training her and her leaving her or whatever, and having this tension between them. But I'm not sure, why I'd like to know why she decided to train her as an apprentice, you know, like that was, because we just kind of said it, and you said it from the top. Ahsoka's not a Jedi, and by doing this, I mean, she's almost practicing the Jedi way, right? So it's just curious why she went down this road with her, and not just you trained her with lightsabers, you know, trained her how to use a lightsaber, you know, versus being a Padawan and because there's a lot of responsibility is to be a Padawan, and you're trying to teach them and guide them into becoming a Jedi Knight, right? Which again is something technically Ahsoka never became. Mm-hmm. She left as a Padawan. So, you know, that part is a little confusing to me. You know, it may be not confusing to others, and maybe cool for others to realize that she's a Padawan to Ahsoka, and I get it. I do get what Lucas, or not Lucas, but Filoni is trying to do, right? He's trying to pass that what they've been advertising, this master and apprentice timeline, right? With Anakin to Ahsoka, and then now Ahsoka to Sabine. So that's why I'm still kind of on the side that I feel like Sabine is going to develop more force sensitivity and become more of an apprentice.
No, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So yeah, overall, I think it's a great start. I think I do have this feeling that we're actually not going to get a lot of Thrawn.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I don't think we will either. I think when we get Thrawn, it's going to be a significant point. We might not even get him until the very end of the season.
I think that's very true, actually. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's when they do the mic drop of he returns with an entire ascendancy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I really, really I hope so bad that we get the rest of the Chiss up in this, because there are so many fun characters that would be great to see brought to life. But if it's just him, I guess it's okay too.
Yeah. What's your gut telling you about Ezra? Are they gonna find Ezra?
The thing is, like, the whole idea of Ezra being Merrick, like, that would be a huge blow to Sabine.
It would be.
It would be a huge blow to her. I don't.
Well, do you think that, where are you on the scale of, percentages of whether or not Merrick is actually Ezra?
To me, I feel like that's. I don't know. If it doesn't feel far-fetched in the sense of it doesn't make sense. It feels far-fetched in the sense of this show is named Ahsoka. The show is not named Sabine. The show is not named Rebels Continued or whatever you want to call it. This show is Ahsoka. So to me, I'm thinking, who would be the biggest emotional blow or the biggest foil or antagonist, or like, what would be the biggest thing that it would emotionally, mentally impact Ahsoka? And I keep going back to Barriss. I don't necessarily think if it's Ezra, it's going to throw Ahsoka for a huge loop. Or at least not as big as a loop as it would have been for Barriss.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be heartbreaking? Absolutely. And that's why I also don't think it's Cal either. Because as far as we know, Ahsoka doesn't know who Cal is.
Right.
That would be more of a fan-based thing. I think it would be a big twist that no one saw coming. Well, everyone saw coming, but nobody saw coming if it was Ezra. But I don't know if that's... We don't really see Ahsoka building that close of a bond with Ezra in Rebels. So unless we get some flashback scenes showing otherwise, I don't... And it could be it's because that ends up being a huge point for Sabine, and that's a huge focal point for Sabine. And in that case, yeah, Merrick could be Ezra, because that would be a huge blow to Sabine. But if we're talking about Ahsoka, I don't... Like, that's my thing on the fence, but that's such a Star Wars-y thing for them to do, to have Ezra be Merrick. I don't know. That was all over the place. I'm like 50-50. I think it depends on what story they tell, and it depends on how it's revealed, and it depends on what the emotional stakes are at that point. So it could be that's our big moment at the end of the whole season.
Right.
That it's Ezra.
Could be. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's going to depend. What about you?
No, I'm probably less than 50% that it's him, but I still think it has to be someone significant, though. So
there's no other way you could do it. I mean, there is another way you could do it, but I would love to know the reasoning behind not making it someone who is important.
Right. I was still on the high side that it was Barriss. Mm-hmm. And I'm still kind of leaning that way.
Same.
Because I think misdirection is part of it as well. So, the bottom line, I hope it's someone significant, because just having a random Inquisitor in there is just a little weird.
Yeah.
But, what else? I know we kind of talked the entire episode.
I'm trying to think if there was anything. trying to think if there's anything else that was like that largely stood out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. Well, then we'll quick talk about this because you brought it up a little bit. This world between worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the Rebel episode that introduced the world between worlds before the Ahsoka premiere. And watching it over, man, that's a big, significant aspect of the galaxy that was introduced. I remember watching it and thinking it was cool and thinking that, oh, okay, that's how Ahsoka survives and lives on. But thinking back, it's like, wow, to introduce a way to change things, like you were saying earlier. Again, I wouldn't go as far as that they're going to change 7 and 9, but but to be able to save characters is pretty significant. Now, here's my question, because I didn't even think about it until I watched it again. So when he saves Ahsoka, I want to say roughly it's been over a year, if not almost 2 years, since that battle on Malachor.
Right.
So when Ezra saves her, like pulls her out, saves her life, puts her back in that time, so puts her back into the past, and he says to her, "Come find us." Now this episode is, it's like the second to last episode of the series, right? So the series ends, I think, 3 episodes later. So obviously Ahsoka doesn't come back within that 2 years, but then we show, fast forwards, and that's what we see her picking up Sabine. My question, I was kind of asking my head, like, so when Ezra puts her back and then goes back to his timeline, do you kind of understand where I'm going now? Is that now all of a sudden those last 2 years or whatever, between those two events has now changed because she is alive. So people's lives are different now, right? Like there is a time change that has happened. Right? Am I thinking about that right? Like events should have been altered.
Yep. No, you're right.
Because she wasn't alive, and then now she is alive. And now obviously if she would have found them, he would have had memories of that, right? But he doesn't have, it doesn't seem like they have any memory of it because they don't talk about her or anything like that. So maybe she doesn't come find them in that time gap. And then all of a sudden he disappears, blah, 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 blah. But obviously she does find them because she starts training Sabine, right? At some point. So, but again, there is a time there where people's lives have changed. Maybe not our rebels that we know, but now Ahsoka has interacted with people that she did not interact with before. So anyway, I'm not saying that that's a huge significant problem or a continuity issue, but you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I think you just nailed what the emotional stake with her would be if Merrick was Ezra. You just made that connection because there would have been regret. Because if Ahsoka didn't survive, maybe Ezra wouldn't have fallen to the dark side. Maybe Ezra would have been able to have finished Thrawn.
Okay, so did your percentage just go up?
Yep, it just went. Because think like that would have been a lot of regret because if you think about Ahsoka, oh my gosh, if you think about Ahsoka's backstory and you think about everything she's been through, something that she wrestled with was regret. Regret of leaving Anakin was the major thing. Maybe it was regret of not finding Ezra sooner so they could have finished Thrawn sooner. Maybe she got distracted. Like there are so many different things. But you just hit the emotional stake of Merrick being Ezra.
Okay. I might actually be with you now on that too. I think my percentages just went up.
Way to go, man.
So yeah, I just watched it thinking, because I'm a big aspect of time travel. Like I think the idea of time travel is just blows my mind. And there's always that, you always, obviously you never know, no one knows anyway, what happens with time travel. But, obviously in the movies, you've seen different aspects of it where like you go back in the past and change it and the future changes. But then like in Avengers, they introduce where the past doesn't change, it becomes like a new future. So that could be what happens with this. It's like you can't really change the past. It just kind of goes on that way. But I don't know. That's just, Ahsoka again, Ahsoka was saved by Ezra by yanking her out of her timeline and then putting her back years before Ezra finds this thing, right? So it's just, it starts really playing with your mind on how that changes the galaxy and the characters she interacts with and stuff like that. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I wonder if they'll ever, because kind of the temple was at the end too. The temple was buried and kind of destroyed. So I don't know if that was made to seem like that was the only gateway into the world between worlds. It doesn't seem like it because you can see all these different. Well, you see all these different times, but maybe I don't know if you've seen any other gateways.
Right.
So I don't know if they'll ever bring back this part of Star Wars again. I don't know. It'd be interesting if they did because, like you said, you can change all kinds of stuff at that point.
You could. You absolutely could.
Yes. Well, that's something to think about for everybody. Yeah. Mind blown. Okay, real quick on some releases. I got to get through that. Next week, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi, the novel drops on August 29th. Something that I've kept off the list just because I didn't, it's just a collection of short stories. It's not really a novel, but it's being collected in novel form. But the High Republic on September 5th is coming out with a junior or a young adult novel that's called Tales of Light and Life, and it's short stories, a collection of short stories from the first phase of. Actually, I think it's some first phase and then some time between phases 1 and 2. And then you got Crimson Climb, October 10th, The Eye of Darkness, November 14th, which kicks off Phase 3 of the High Republic. And then you have another collection of short stories from Phase 2 called The High Republic Tales of Enlightenment on December 5th. And then Defy the Storm ends the High Republic Phase 3 on March 12th. Let's see, this past week on comics, you got Dr. Aphra 35. Next week, Bounty Hunters 37. Mandalorian Season 2, number 3. And then starting in September, you got Star Wars 38, Dark Droids number 2. And then the rest of September, you got Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, this Dark Droid series, and Dr. Aphra coming out. So there you go. Comments. Let's see what comments we had on our last show. Let's see. Of course, I'm sure Thrawn Addict. Yep. It says, I'm so excited for Ahsoka. Not long now. I wasn't that surprised by the trailer with the Anakin voiceover. I think they pretty much announced he was cast at the very beginning, but we'll be interested to see if he will just have the voiceovers, flashbacks, or Force Ghost Anakin scenes, or all three, which would be my preference. I don't know how much Anakin we will get though, because they have a lot to cover in one series, like Rebels characters, Thrawn, Inquisitors, new villains, Finding Ezra, etc. I'm so excited. You see what they do, and can't wait for yours and Hannah's weekly reviews. I feel like I need a Mandalorian-style deep dive discussion about each episode from both of you. Oh, well. I think we dove in pretty good this episode. So
I was about to say, I think you got that this episode.
yeah, let us know, Thrawn. Hopefully we did. Hopefully we did. All right. There you go. So episode 3 of Ahsoka will be out, of course, next Tuesday, I think. I mean, again, it doesn't really say on Disney Plus. Usually it says, it does say new part every Tuesday.
Yay!
So yes, Tuesdays at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, we'll be getting a new. And if you become a patron, you'll get some reaction videos from us for behind each episode.
Yes, you will.
So, yeah. So sign up at patreon.com if you're interested in supporting the show. As always, thanks to our current patrons. We thank you very much and appreciate your support. And we will be back next week to talk about episode 3 or part 3 of Ahsoka, and whatever news does come out, if anything, from Star Wars.
Yeah.
We will see. Hannah, thank you so much.
Dave, thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Go watch Ahsoka. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.